And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another aggravated edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Illinois, our big rival, Illinois. I didn't hear that chatter this time, oddly enough, but that was always weird when they call us our big rival. But anyways, Indiana lost the game 70-62, putting IU to 12-8 on the season, 4-5 in the Big Ten. A game that was closer than the final score really kind of says. I really felt like IU fought for 40 minutes in this one. That's kind of something we haven't been able to say too many times this year. Ware was obviously out in this game, so IU went with a little bit smaller ball of a type of lineups as we went through. Normally, you would think with the way Woodson likes to do his lineups with the two big guys that you would see Sparks in there, like we have before when Ware has been out. But instead, Walker gets the start. And IU got off to a pretty good start. Was very aggressive on defense. I thought the defense overall was good for most of the game, really shutting down Illinois and not allowing them to make many of their first couple possessions, and really got IU off to a 8-point lead, which IU would kind of hold on to a lead for most of the first half, just through points in the paints and strong defense, forcing hard shots. But at the 8-minute mark, Illinois would go on a run to take a 4-point advantage into half, and a very odd tech call on some very odd officiating that we had to deal with in this game. Second half would see just kind of a battle from IU, taking a lead in the middle of the half, and IU surprisingly playing a lot of small ball during that position. Point in the game. We saw times where we haven't this year at all seen McKenzie playing at the 4. And I thought IU did a good job handling that kind of situation. But in the end, it was just the lack of 3-point shooting and shooting overall that IU couldn't overcome. And at least IU was in it. At that 1-minute mark, the game tied 62. And that horrible block charge call would give all the momentum to Illinois to be able to close it out in the end. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Hoosier Morning After. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Here with me always is Martha, the mop lady. Martha, give me your opening thoughts on this game.
You know, I think going into the game, when you looked at there wasn't a whole lot of faith, I think, both from Vegas and from the fan base when you look at our effort against Purdue and Wisconsin, and the spread being 13.5 points, and kind of the apathetic state of the fan base in terms of the way the season's going. So there wasn't a whole lot of, nobody's really excited about, at least in, especially in my circle of people I talk to, like, oh, here we go, Illinois, it's going to be ugly, right? And I thought, I thought we put ourselves in a position to win the basketball game. I think we did that by some improved lineups, an improved game plan. I think we went in with playing a little bit more small ball. I wish we would have started the game, maybe brought Anthony Walker off the bench, but you can't complain about the way Indiana started the game. I thought defensively we were a lot more active, just seemed a lot more engaged, which, for Division I Big Ten basketball team, having to ask for that is kind of frustrating, right? I mean, it's like, it goes back to like being happy about the effort of the game, and we joke about it, but there's some truth to it because you feel like you have to pull it from this team. So to see this squad come out and put themselves in a position to win the basketball game and do that primarily with their defensive effort and almost primarily in spite of themselves, right? We'll get into some of the stats that really handicap this team because they are glaring. But, I think you have to appreciate, I think that's the one thing that you have to appreciate about Mike Woodson coach teams is at times in his tenure when the program and the team has been faced with adversity, he's found a way to kind of help this team and program get through those times. And in some cases in surprising ways, right? And yesterday would have been a surprising win, and I think the team was in a position to do that. It just seems like they're not playing with a full deck in terms of what they can bring to a game right now. And that's the frustrating part, I think, for the fans is here we are in year 3 where, you look at what this team is missing, what this roster is missing. You're really putting yourself in a difficult position to navigate the Big Ten. And we're seeing that, right? I think when you put your your eggs in a basket that, doesn't it's a pretty small basket, right? And you're hoping that it produces results. I don't think Indiana basketball is in a position to be able to hope like that. You've got to go out and field a good roster. And I don't think we did a great job of doing that this offseason, and we're seeing some of the results. But I think when you look at yesterday, you have to be somewhat pleased by the defensive effort and somewhat still pounding your head against the table on all the things offensively that hinders this team from being remotely successful in the Big Ten. So, yeah, you're still left kind of in a dark spot with where this thing's going. I mean, what, 12-8 right now? I mean, yeah, it's just not fun right now. I think you appreciate the effort, but it's not been a fun ride at all, and you kind of struggle to see where is this thing going to get better this season, and I have no answers there.
Yeah, it's a tough state to be in because as Indiana fans and as an Indiana program, this type of effort and this kind of fight is the base. That should always be there. That should always be the thing that Indiana brings, no matter what. If like in this game, shooting's not coming or anything like that, the effort and the fight should always be there. So hopefully they found something and clicked over into that, and now this becomes the base. This doesn't become something of, well, at least they fought and gave a lot of effort. So I'm hopeful for that at least, but we at least have to now talk about what probably obviously lost the game for Indiana, and that's that shooting. I mean, IU, doesn't make a single 3-pointer in this game, goes 0 for 9 from 3, and also equally free throws look horrible in the sense going 12 for 22. And then your lead guard towards the end of the game, Xavier Johnson, goes 2 for 7, missing 2 really big ones for you at the end of the game that kind of really could have helped change that tide at the end of the game. What do you think it is with this shooting of this team? What's the problem? We have people like Galloway, who's shot it at 40% in the past. Xavier Johnson can shoot it pretty well. Malik has shown in other games that he can get out there and shoot it. He didn't attempt one at all in this game. I know it's a loaded and hard question, but what are your thoughts on how we get over this shooting hump?
Well, I don't think this roster does. I think part of it's equal parts mental, equal parts ability. I think, when you look at Trey Galloway in high school, he was never a great 3-point shooter. I think last year was kind of the exception for him. So to have him, and we remember last year, right? He did a great job when X went down of filling that role, but he's at his best when he was that 6-man spark plug off the bench. And remember early last season, North Carolina game specifically, or there were times when the team came out flat, he would come in and be that spark plug. But now, not only are you asking him to be your shooting guard and but also your leader, right? And that's just a lot on a guy that I don't think that's Trey at his best. I think he's best being that guy that comes off the bench, and he's never going to be a great 3-point shooter. Should he have taken the large regression he did this year? No, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, and some of which I just mentioned. But Gabe was never a great shooter in high school. He was always capable of getting to the basket and getting his shot off and giving. He would take what the defense would give him, but nobody's going to rely on his 3-point shot. And then X has that hitch in his shot, and then you've got two sophomores that didn't even sniff the court yesterday. That when you look at CJ Gunn, I mean, he was brought in as a 3-point shooter. He didn't even see the court. So I think there was a lot of confidence put into some things that just, they either didn't take that next step, or they didn't return to form of last season. But ultimately, you had to bring in some better guards this past offseason, and we can talk about that until we're blue in the face. But with this team, I just think it is what it is. I just don't think they're great shooters. And I think anytime they have a bad game, it becomes mental. And now it's just a huge mental block where, you've got teams sagging back, just begging them to shoot the basketball. The opportunities are there. I mean, with Illinois, I mean, the shots were there. It's just, and outside of McKenzie and Baco, and, obviously he had a rough one from behind. The whole team did yesterday, but, he's been the one, I think, decent bright spot behind the arc. But, outside of that, and I don't, where does it get better? I don't think it does. So it's just, continues to be a head scratcher.
And McKenzie, like you mentioned there, and we'll transition transition to talk about him, is IU's 3-point shooter. And he credit to Illinois. They played him hard. They played up in his face whenever he caught it at the 3-point line, which led him to a lot of his drives to the basket, and how a lot of his scoring happened in this game. He finished with 12 points, most of them in the second half. Like I said, I do think Illinois, though, game played him to take away the threes from him, which still amazes me, though, in that sense, is that if you see that happening, run some screens, run something to get him open, get his game going the other way, and you'll see something. Or even just clear the side, and rather than Trey or someone else delivering the post pass to Malik Renew, have that always be Mackenzie. Then he's there ready to receive the ball and ready to shoot it each time. Most of the post passes we had to Renew in this game were just guys then passing it to him, being ready there to receive. They didn't look to shoot after they got the ball out, and looked to rather swing the ball and repost. And you got to be ready. You got to be ready to make those shots. And I think a lot of times, too, I'll put that on Malik as well. He needs to recognize that and be able to kick out for those shots a few more. He gets a little bullyish to go and find his shot, which I guess he has to, because he's kind of the main scoring threat for IU. But getting it back to Mackenzie, I thought he had a really good game. He continues his upward trajectory, a really good game rebounding as well. I thought he was really aggressive on the board, 12 rebounds, led IU. Just was kind of locked in for this game. Just kind of a disappointment that we didn't take advantage of such a great game that he was on. Your thoughts on Mackenzie's game?
Yeah, I mean, I remained. I mean, he's went from, barely being able to keep him on the court for 8 to 10 minutes to playing, almost the whole game and not being able to take him off the court, right? I think there's still the occasional defensive lapses, but the jump he's taken, I think, in his all around game and just understanding how to be able to play Big Ten basketball, and he seems to be a lot more engaged. I think I read and I saw, when he was walking off the court yesterday, just the disappointment, head in his face, and he seemed it seemed to be a gigantic adjustment for him early on, but one. And this is, I think, where you've got to get a little bit of credit to the coaching staff that they were able to bring him along and get him into a position. Yeah, I mean, you look and 4 for 14 field goals, over 3 from 3. That looks a little bit head scratching, but I don't think that tells the whole story. I think if you're watching the game a little bit, you see, especially the last couple of games, right? You see how much more engaged he is, and just from a basketball standpoint, that he's just a guy that can make plays. And the one guy that went 4 for 4 from the free throw line, which with this team is a monumental achievement. But yeah, you just have to be happy about the strides he's taken, and hopefully he continues to develop. And as we start to look at what this team looks like moving forward, somebody that you can really potentially build a team around, depending on what his future holds for him. So yeah. Proud of that kid for how far he's come early in the season, because I was scratching my head with, like, man, what with all these stars, what are we getting here, man? This is a lot of questions being asked. So proud of how far he's come, for sure.
Yep. And Malik Renew continues to take this team on his back. Had a monster of a game like he usually does, and needs to have for IU, scoring 21 points, going 8 for 2 from the field. Didn't take a 3 at all, which was a little disappointing to me, because I feel like that is slightly in his game and at least opens up a few other things for him. Some of that might have been since Hawkins is on him a good deal. He's more of a mobile guard, was up in him. Maybe he didn't feel comfortable taking those, but just annoying that he didn't look at it. And I like how aggressive he was in this game. Again, I would say maybe bullish to a degree and didn't look to pass out, but it's such a waste after we talk about Mackenzie and we talk about Renew and how good he is, and just get a slightly better production out of some guards, because it feels right now we're just kind of wasting those two guys in games like this and in a season like this, to if you just get a little bit more contribution, we get X just make that one more final step and make a few shots from the outside, that it just highlights these players and just accents their game so much better. Also, I thought that he played a lot better as far as fouling sense. He kind of got screwed, I think, on those last two calls going up for that rebound against Hawkins. I think it's kind of that should have been a play on situation in that. But yeah, what'd you think on Malik's game?
Yeah, I thought he was strong. I thought he to your point, I thought he had some cheap fouls. I thought, obviously he especially with Khalil out, he's the vocal point of Woody's offense. And when we talk about the guard play and not providing much support, there's just no adjustment to try to get guards going in any way, shape, or form. It's just, especially with Khalil out, you would think you'd see, maybe a little bit different game plan, but it just seems to be a lot of the same, where you're trying to get the ball down low to Malik and I don't want to say force things through it, but when you've got guards and perimeter players that are struggling around Malik, it just adds so much pressure to what you're going to need from him, that you think you'd run some plays and some sets to try to get some confidence from your perimeter players, but it was more the same. And I thought Malik did a decent job. I thought he, to your point, he did get the short end of the stick on some foul calls that took him off the court a little bit quicker than we really needed him to. But, I remember a couple plays where he was just able to back down his Illinois defender and just get his shot off. And he just, we talked about McKenzie and the step he's taken, and Malik has been consistent from the first game of this season. But man, his sophomore season has been strong, right? And he looks like a guy that's going to be around college basketball for a while. So, yeah, I think that he continues to just be a force down low, and one that Indiana can consistently rely on when you can't say that about a lot of his teammates. You usually know what you're going to get from Malik, and that's a big step for him from last season.
And then Xavier Johnson, I thought, had a step forward in this game. Thought that he was getting back to what we need from him and what we hope from him, is getting downhill, a step in the right direction, but he has to make his shots. He has to continue to be a threat, and that aggressiveness needs to stick around a lot longer. I think there was kind of a string in the game, or a moment in the game, where he wasn't really as aggressive getting to the basket, or wasn't looking for his own situation, wasn't running pick and rolls with Malik, that I thought he kind of disappeared for portions of this game when we needed him, but scored 14 points, 6 for 11 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, and then those free throws, 2 for 7 from the free throw line. He needs to be better there. Did just finish with 2 fouls, got screwed on that tech. That tech was not a technical foul. If Hawkins doesn't react the way he did, if he doesn't whine and be a little baby like he was in that, then the whistle's not happening. I agree. I understand you shouldn't throw the ball to the other player like that, but that happens all the time during the game. And if the game time situation was any different, if there were 10 seconds on the game clock or anything like that, and they wanted to inbound the ball to possibly go down and make another point, then Hawkins would have received that ball and inbounded it, and no tech would have been called. So a little bit of BS theatrics in that, and a little frustrating. And I understand some of that's going to come from X because of his reputation and stuff, and he treads on a thin line. But I think that's also BS. You shouldn't have that kind of caveat for certain players, that if they do a little thing, I'm going to call this differently than if, say, Anthony Leal did something like that. So what were your thoughts on Xavier's game kind of heading in the right direction?
I certainly thought, obviously when you look at, him coming back from being out, and not giving us a whole lot, I certainly think that, he was able to give us a little bit more offensively and be a little bit more impactful in the game. I think, when you look at the end of the first half, the unfortunate part about it is he's created that target on his back. Right. I mean, it's not going to take, he doesn't have the benefit of the doubt with officiating that I think the rest of the team does. And right, wrong, or indifferent, despite our feelings, all the official has to see is the ball hit Coleman Hawkins, and Coleman Hawkins react, for him to just assume, right? And that's the key word, assume, that X probably did something stupid. X has he's earned that himself, right? So to even put yourself in a position to remove all benefit of the doubt, that's mean, that's kind of on X, right? I think he's got to understand that he's got no wiggle room to be able to do anything, right? Just drop the basketball as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, it's ridiculous. It's unfair. It shouldn't have been a tech. I do agree with that part of it. But the unfortunate part about it was Xavier Johnson who was tossing the ball back. And for a 24-year-old senior, he's put himself in a ridiculous position by his antics. And it's costly, right? It's just another costly, impactful thing that, again, we can dissect and debate the right or wrong behind it. But the fact of the matter is it was 2 points against his team that, ended up down the stretch. I mean, I think it has a potential to be a different game if you don't give up those 2 shots. So it's frustrating, right? But I think besides that, I think it was a step in the right direction for him in terms of being able to contribute offensively. I think it was a ridiculous block call that was called on him. I think, it's just, I don't think he's going to get any favors from the officiating crew. I'm sure he's part of their pregame debrief and look out for this guy. And it's just frustrating, right? Because it's costly to the team. It's in costly moments that these whistles are happening. So, I think certainly he was a lot more impactful and helped his team out more so on the offensive end than he has in the past. But you just got to remove some of that other stuff. So, yeah, better game for X.
Yeah, and I think it's frustrating that he does get those calls, but I feel like it's hard for him to do that because he plays with that edge to him. And that, I think, is what gives him a lot of his fuel and a lot of his aggression and a lot of his downhill situation that he's able to do is playing with that edge. So it's tough because you want to reel that in and you want to make him aware of that and not play with that. But does that create a lesser contributing X? So I don't know. It's going to be something where we're just going to have to know it may happen a time or two. It just needs to not come at the expense of affecting the game like it can and has before. One player I do want to mention that I think had a really good game and was the first one off the bench. We haven't seen him in quite a few games. Was Anthony Leal. Not obviously contributing much when you look at the box score, but I thought he played really hard in this game. Had the 2 points that he did score on a great back door cut. His player obviously lost him and doesn't think he was much of a threat, but love his just IQ to get that going on. And IU overall was playing a defense in this game where they were switching on a lot of the screens, which caused Leal to be on Hawkins or Illinois' big man many times. And I love the way Leal battles. I love his effort and I love his battle when he does get switched onto those big guys because he denies it. He stays in there and a lot of teams will take advantage of that mismatch and just his stockiness, his knowledge of the game. He fronts the big man. He battles down there, doesn't foul and disrupts those possessions. So I think there's a lot of ways that he affects games that we don't see, and good to see him get the 16 minutes that he did in this game, a shorter rotation overall. Your thoughts on Leal in this game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously his contributions have been, somewhat spread out and kind of few and far between, and his opportunities haven't come around a lot, but he always seems a guy that takes advantage of his opportunities, right? And I think, when you're looking for any sort of answers, and especially without, we mentioned, the sophomores not getting any action. It's right. Okay. It's like, who do you turn to on the bench then, especially on the perimeter, to be able to give you some minutes? And 15 minutes for Anthony Leal, that's big time. And I thought he came in and he doesn't shy away from the opportunity or the contact or being asked to do certain things. He's always going to have limitations on, his athleticism and kind of the scoring he can provide. But, he's a guy that when he gets open looks, he's going to knock them down and shoot with some confidence and, obviously providing that bucket and a couple rebounds. I think he came in and contributed and that's more than we can say about our bench sometimes. So I think when you're kind of searching around looking for any type of answer you can get, I think Anthony Leal's a guy that's been around long enough that he's like, here, let me give it a shot. And when he gets that opportunity, I think you're now seeing a guy that can come in and maybe provide that value off the bench that we're searching for. If those young guys aren't going to take that next step and be as inconsistent as they are, you might as well give a guy like Anthony Leal, who I think is just in everything for the right. He bleeds this program. He's a guy that's going to go in and fight no matter what. It doesn't matter if the team is, 20-1 or 12 and whatever we are. He's going to go in and do what he's asked to do. So, it was nice to see him get a chance, and I think he came in and had some nice minutes for us.
Yeah, and he continues to be that player, and we've said it often about Walker on this program, that it's just great to have that knowledge, that seniority in college basketball. You can tell a difference between the younger guys and Leal and Walker that just know how to do the right plays, play hard, and make great decisions, make great cuts, receive the ball, rotate the ball when it needs to be. They kind of keep things moving a little bit more. Their basketball IQ and just overall contributions are great. I would hopefully like to see, because he's known for his three-point shooting, can he be that random player that we have that comes in and takes a three or two? I'd like to see him take a shot or two. Players are going to play off him a little bit because they don't expect him to be that contributor on offense. So I don't know. Maybe he can turn on at the end of this, towards the end of the season, and find something and contribute a little bit behind the line for IU where we need it. Galloway is an interesting conundrum for me, and I think we talked about him earlier. You'd want him to find his shot. You want him to find and be what he was last year. Now, was last year a bit of an exception to the rule? Him being 40% from three, is that not really his game? Is he not really going to be that kind of player for IU? And that's fine. If he's not, he at least needs to try to make a few for IU. But I do like his kind of aggressiveness, and his defense, obviously, in this game was fantastic and was a great contributor, but he just needs to be a little more aggressive on those backdoor cuts. Need to see him get downhill. If he's not going to make those threes, he just didn't take a single free throw in this game. And again, that shows that he maybe wasn't as aggressive as he should have been. That's not to say, again, that he didn't hustle at all in this game, because he was working his ass off for this team, but would just like to see a bigger contribution from him than we got. Your kind of thoughts on Galloway's game?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit in the opening, and just what he's being asked to do, and as a starting two guard in the Big Ten, it's you're putting him in a position that I don't think necessarily has matched his skill set across his career. I think last year again remained a little bit of the exception from the 3-point line, and certainly he proved to be able to shoot the three at a 40% rate, but that was an outlier in his career, and to put the program in a position where that's something you're going to rely on is a big ask from that guy, especially when you're asking him also to be your leader. We've kind of talked about that at length, right? And I thought yesterday he was a guy that did some of the little things to keep this game trending in the right direction. The stuff that doesn't always show up on the box score, right? You could see kind of some of that leadership shine through and making some of those little plays. And obviously you want to see him go a little bit better from the field. 4 for 10, 0 for 3. Not even getting a free throw from your starting two guard is just a problem, right? Your guards need to get to the free throw line, and unfortunately when ours do, they don't make them. So I'm not sure if that's a good
maybe
or
it was
bad.
good he didn't get to the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's the double-edged sword, isn't it? But yeah, it is. It's just, I think Trey, again, is a guy that I think is best suited to be kind of a sixth man, or, starting at the three, or spot start, or whatever you need him to be or want him to be. But to be able to have to rely on him as your starting two guard in the heart of a conference season on the road against Illinois, who, came into the week ranked 11th. Obviously, they dropped the game at Northwestern, but they're a team that's got a lot of skill, especially with Terrence Shannon being back. So, it was a big ask to go on the road and get that win. I thought despite ourselves, we were able to put ourselves in a position to have a chance. But Trey's just a guy that, our guards just have to have more from a scoring standpoint from our guards. And, 4 for 10, 0 for 3 is just not good enough from your two guard. And, I think you've got to appreciate everything that Trey Galloway is, but you also have to be able to admit what he isn't. And he isn't a starting two guard in the Big Ten. And I think, that's where we're at. And unfortunately, we don't really have any other answers to turn to. And so, yeah, I thought it was a decent effort from him, but it's it is kind of what it is at this point.
Yep. Looking at some numbers in this situation in this game, obviously the biggest glaring one we'll get out of the way, the 0 for 9 from 3 was a bit of frustrating. One positive one, at least, turnovers, only 9. I know 9 obviously is still a big number, but not bad for IU. The turnovers really didn't plague IU in this one. One negative I will say is assists, only 8 assists in this game. Now, part of that I think has to do with Ware not being in there. I feel like a lot of assists go up when you have Malik and Ware in there together. Those guys are good playing off each other. But in games where IU has won and IU's offense has looked like it's been clicking, it's because they've been sharing the ball. They've been moving. They've had great plays with each other. Trey does his little curl situation and either finishes and passes. And those assist numbers are a lot higher in these games. So that was one disappointing thing to see for IU. What are some stats that stand out for you in this game?
Outside of the glaring, I thought defensively, we put ourselves in a good position to win the basketball game outside of rebounding. I scratch my head at our inability to, 14 offensive rebounds to 7. And that seems to be a constant theme with this team is second chance points for our opposition, despite, at times, especially when Ware's been on the court, our length, right? We're a team that really struggles rebounding the basketball, which I don't understand. And that's obviously when you're playing on the road and playing teams like Wisconsin, Purdue, and now Illinois, to be dominated on the glass on the offensive end or giving your opponent second chance points. You combine that with the inability to make 3-pointers and free throws, you are severely handicapping yourself. You're giving yourself essentially no chance. You're playing with one arm tied behind your back. So rebounding is one that, despite kind of what I felt like was really an increased defensive effort yesterday, was one that still you're like, man, still a little bit lopsided. So yeah, that one stuck out a little bit to me. And then just, the other stats were 0 minutes from, our 2 sophomores that we talked about that a little bit. And then obviously the 3-pointers and the free throws. So all in all, you look at somebody just shows you the rebounding, the 3-pointers and free throws made. You're like, man, we just lost by 40 points. And, so there has to be some, and I don't think Illinois played a great basketball game. They missed some stuff. And, I think part of that is because of the defense we played, but yeah, to have ourselves in a position to win was kind of a small victory in and of itself, besides some of the glaring disadvantage we had in the statistical area.
Yeah, defensively for IU to go on the road in the Big Ten, especially against a team that's in the top portion of the Big Ten, ranked 10 in the country when this game was played, to go there and force them, not only, I think, like you said, from IU, but also just kind of self-inflicted to a degree. But I think IU, again, had a hand in it and forced them to 37% from the field, 30% from 3. Is a huge missed opportunity and just frustrating because a few more things go your way and a few more things change or swing in a different way. And we're saying we have a very different tone in this game. Yes, we will be talking about the lack of shooting and everything and how we maybe stole one and everything, but it's a win that we needed and a win that is lost, sadly, out of the schedule for IU now and a circumstance that we've talked about many times. A few other games that we've had that have been close, the Kansas game, where we had just a few situations go wrong for IU or self-inflicted wounds that we do upon ourselves that take games away, that take wins away from IU. It's a very frustrating. But IU has a few home games coming up, and with those home games and with the winter, it can be tougher and schedules can be tight to get to those games. But if you have tickets available for those games and want to know what to do with them, Martha can tell you what you can do with those IU home basketball tickets. What should they do with them, Martha?
Yeah, I think when we get to seasons that sometimes don't go the way that we sometimes think that they may, or obviously there's certainly some there's some apathy kind of surrounding the program now, which sometimes keeps some people home. But if you've got tickets that you may not use, there's certainly a large pool of folks that would love to go to the game. And this pool is full of deserving folks that could never afford to go on their own or have never been. So, if you've got tickets, kindly consider the Hoosier Ticket Project, HoosierTicketProject.org/donate, as maybe a home for those tickets. And again, if you know somebody that's never been, we're probably going to get, when seasons go like this, we typically see our donations increase a little bit, which is a great thing. But if you know any great candidates, feel free to nominate them as well on our website, HoosierTicketProject.org/request. You can kind of tell their story and let us know why they may be good ticket recipients. And we'll be down with your good friends from the Assembly Call, Chad, that we'll be hosting an event next weekend. We'll be there. Kind of giving people info about our organization, and also kind of closing out our big fundraiser that we're doing, our raffle. We're raffling some women's basketball tickets for the Iowa game, the men's game the night before, a 2-night stay down there at Airbnb. So if anybody's interested in getting raffle tickets, we'll be at upstairs after the game with the crew from Assembly Call. Chad, you're not coming into town for that game, are you?
Won't be making it for that one.
Hoping to get a world famous Chad hug, but
at
least I got one this season. That's more than last year.
Yep, I can at least be good for one. Yeah, it's a real kind of barn burner of a game and stuff. And I'll kick it back to you one last time. Just give me your closing thoughts on this game. Yeah,
it's just, I think it stinks, right? I think, in year 3 and it's a bummer, right? I think there were a lot of unknowns coming into the season, especially when the program lost what it lost with Trace and Race and Miller and those guys leaving the program. But it's also a program that I think is in a great position to succeed in this version of college basketball, right? The resources are not non-existent. This team should be able to put on the court a competitive team every single season. And I think that's the frustration is that we're sitting here in year 3 and we let off the show praising kind of the effort and the being happy that was at least there. And the fact that we're celebrating is not the right word, but the fact that that's what we have to kind of lean on in we're 3/4 the way through year 3. It's concerning, right? It's like, I don't think anybody has a warm fuzzy about where this program is headed under Mike Woodson. I don't think anybody has the answer to where it's headed, right? You look at the roster now, and attrition is what it is in college basketball, right? This roster is going to look completely different next season. So, and nobody knows, right? So it's like, there's just more questions than answers at this point. And I think that's the frustrating part, is like, you're not sure what this program's identity is. Because certainly it shouldn't be what it's been this season, right? So where do we go from here? What do we have to hang our hats on? And I think that's the frustrating part, is like, what is this program building itself on? And, and that's not just this game yesterday. I think it's been a buildup. Obviously, yesterday was what it was. But what we do know is that the team we fielded yesterday and the results that we're getting, they're just not good enough for a team to be able to navigate the Big Ten, let alone Indiana, right? Let alone Indiana. So it's frustrating. It's challenging. And it's just one that at this point, you've got to see where it's headed. You kind of have to ride out this season. Hopefully there's some bright spots along the way that can start to form themselves as building blocks. I think, you look at Mackenzie Mbaka, what's the future hold for a guy like him who's really proven to kind of build himself up as this season's gone on? There's a potential building block, right? So, but there aren't many of those. They're few and far between. So I think that's the frustrating part of this season, is just not sure where we're headed. And I think yesterday was kind of a microcosm of just that, just another frustrating point of where do we go now? So yeah, just hope that, with a couple home games that we have a couple bright spots to point at, and you and I have a better time getting together the following morning.
Yeah, to me, it is all about what position this team is being put in. There are pieces on this team that can perform better, can contribute better, can do things a lot more for this team, just being put in the proper position to play to those strengths, to do things in the right way. That can cause this season to turn around in a good way, not a great way. I won't say great. But that's on the coaching staff to figure this out. Is there something going on in the locker room we don't know about that is causing some rough times for these players? Who knows? We don't know unless we're there with them. But it's frustrating when you see these types of situations. And Woody's seat is very hot, and it gets warmer with every game like this, and every missed opportunity, and every lack of use of players. And it's weird to say, because you then look at IU players that have gone. Just look at Tamar Bates, how he's cooking now at Missouri and making threes and everything. But some reason in our program couldn't hit him. Was that just him finally finding his game? Was that IU not using him and developing him the way they should? I don't know. Time will tell. And we are in year 3. It is a short period. And you can say that in many different tones. We're in year 3, but you can also say we're only in year 3, but you can say we are in year 3. So things have to change. Things have to get different. And like Martha said, we will see a very probably different turnaround of a program in the offseason. We have to see things change a lot for the seat to cool off for Mike Woodson. That being said, right now in the current situation IU is in, players are trending a little bit better. Xavier Johnson, getting him going a little bit more, run some things better for Malik. If we get Ware back at some point, how does that change the trajectory of this team? We continue to see, like we said, McKenzie play better games. Coaching staff just needs to put him in better situations. So there's still hope. Hope is still there. Hope will always be there. I will always have hope. I know a lot of you maybe don't, but it will at least always be there for me. And we will see. I'll still be there tuning in. Luckily, we have 2 home games coming up where IU can write some things and feel that juice that this team solely needs from the home crowd. So still be out there, still support these guys, still give it to them. Try to keep those boo birds away if you can when you're at the games. It's not going to help in this current situation with this team. But that'll do it on this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. You can also follow Martha at The Mop Lady. There you find more information about when we go live and watch either on Twitter, here on YouTube. I see a lot of you guys in there. Little heated discussions that we've seen in the chat this time. But guys, thank you for keeping it classy overall for us. We'll be back again the morning after the next game. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to Bob Thompson for producing the music you hear on the show. Until then, guys, go out there, have yourselves a wonderful day, and let's go Hoosiers.